Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. Today we have Amy, Marla, and Chris. Good to have everyone. Craig said that he couldn't be here and he was going to check in because we said we were going to talk about him. I don't know. Is there anything we can say about Craig? Nothing? Okay. It lasted, 3 seconds? Okay, let's move on.
Today, I can only understand about half of what he says.
I ignore the other half, Chris. So
I need
That's the only important part that you need to
understand. Yeah, most of it's a load of shit. It took me about a year of listening to him to understand what he was saying. A good year. So.
Okay, well, I've been here a few months, most of the way there.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Any announcements? Let's see. ZoomAAmeetings.com. We have a nightly 9 p.m. Eastern online meeting of AA. That link goes directly to the meeting. If you come on Friday night, say hello to me. Tuesday or Friday. I do security on Tuesday and Friday I chair. And then Amy you chair on Sunday. And then you chair the beginners meeting on Friday.
Yep.
Right. So any of those nights, you can say hello to us. We're there quite often. Great meeting. It's going to be way after COVID. I think that meeting's going to keep going as long as we don't screw it up.
You said as long as we don't screw it up. I've just been laughing about it since you said it because I get it.
It's so funny. We've got these newcomers, right? They've gotten sober in COVID. And they have, we had, what was the last thing they wanted to do? They wanted to require members to go to a meeting a week.
Right.
Whoa, we can't do that. We can't do it.
Right. Right.
It's just funny because I remember I had all those ideas when I started, So, I'm not judging. I'm laughing. I'm like,
no. Yeah. Well, that's it. We're laughing and giggling because we can totally relate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny to watch them, but they're all maturing and growing, and I'm proud of them. I'm just I'm grateful to be involved.
To get sober during COVID, that's a challenge and a half. There were more opioid deaths last year than any other time. Overdoses.
Really?
So I guess
I thought about it, but yeah.
Getting sober now is very hooray.
See, my ego says, well, what the fuck do you mean? It was hard to get sober when I got sober. There were pandemic or not, it was fucking hard to quit. But I mean, I get I definitely get what you're saying. And I think kudos to anybody that makes a decision to get sober and stays, right? Yay.
Who wants to read for us today? Who's in the mood?
I'll be happy to read.
Okay, Marla, have at it, dear.
Have at it.
Just read the whole thing and then we'll go back and talk about it, maybe. That's okay.
All right. Keng Seng Chu. Master Keng Seng Chu, a disciple of Lao Tzu, became famous for his wisdom, and the people of Weilei began to venerate him as a sage. He avoided their homage and refused their gifts. He kept himself hidden and would not let them come to see him. His disciples remonstrated with him and declared that since the time of Yao and Shun, it had been the tradition for wise men to accept veneration and thus exercise a good influence. Master Keng replied, "Come here, my children, listen to this. If a beast big enough to swallow a wagon should leave its mountain forest, it will not escape the hunter's trap. If a fish big enough to swallow a boat lets itself be stranded by the outgoing tide, then even ants will destroy it. So birds fly high, beasts remain in trackless solitudes, keep out of sight, and fishes or turtles go deep down to the very bottom. The man who has some respect for his person keeps his carcass out of sight, hides himself as perfectly as he can. As for Yao and Shun, why praise such kings? What good did their morality do? They knocked a hole in the wall and let it fill up with brambles. They numbered the hairs of your head before combing them. They counted out each grain of rice before cooking their dinner. What good did they do to the world with their scrupulous distinctions? If the virtuous are honored, the world will be filled with envy. If the smart man is rewarded, the world will be filled with thieves. You cannot make men good or honest by praising virtue and knowledge. Since the days of pious Yao and virtuous Shun, everybody has been trying to get rich. A son will kill his father for money. A minister will murder his sovereign to satisfy his ambition. In broad daylight, they rob each other. At midnight, they break down walls. The root of all of this was planted in the time of Yao and Shun. The branches will grow for 1,000 ages. And 1,000 ages from now, men will be eating one another raw. Doesn't that give you chills?
Comments?
Yeah, the last two lines are so appropriate to me.
For this moment in time in our USA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. There's barbaric behavior going on.
Mm. They knocked a hole in the wall and let it fill up with brambles. That puzzled me.
Well, what's a bramble?
It's
Bushes?
a thorny thing. Thorny bush, maybe?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
bushes and stuff like that.
So they destroyed the wall, in other words. They made the wall less secure. Okay, so Chu, we know he was a disciple of Lao Tzu. So his behavior is something we should pay attention to. He avoided praise. He was famous for his wisdom, but he avoided praise, and his disciples had to look up, remonstrate in its forceful protest. So his disciples protested that he did not take all the praise. So they protested. And they said, since Yao and Shun, it has been the tradition for wise men to accept veneration. And thus exercise good influence. You can influence a lot if you accept their veneration. You can help so many.
Yeah, but isn't that like quite the opposite of what we're trying to be? Like that's absolute opposite of humility.
Exactly.
Absolute opposite of program of attraction.
The motive would be good. Listen, Master, you need to accept all this praise. People will get to know you. You'll have a bigger audience. You can influence more. You can do more good. Oh, that's what I'm reading.
Yeah. No, I think the same thing. But what I see, and I know I think this is the point or one of the points, that's why he is the sage and not them.
Yes, but other sages had done this though. The other sages before him, back to the time of Yao and Shun, had accepted all of this praise. So he's having to act against the norm in that time.
He's being an incorruptible sage.
Yes.
Sustainable.
Right.
You know, a lot. I hear so many times. Okay, let me ask you something. I used to think my purpose would be to help as many people as I could. Okay. Now I think my purpose is just to do my part. Here, he could have helped a lot more people if he would have taken the praise, is what they're saying. Thus, you would have exercise a good influence. You'd have all this additional influence because of all these people that will get to know you and get to know how wise you are and all those things.
But like, I don't understand how that's possible. How did they think he would be able to influence more people by accepting the praise? Like,
I can't. He wouldn't be hiding out. He wouldn't be avoiding. He said he avoided homage and their gifts, and he did. He didn't. He would not let anyone come see him.
Got it.
I would imagine that when people would come to see him for his praise, they would bring gifts with them. That kind of a thing, I would assume.
Gifts and money.
You what, Chris?
Yep.
So, so many times I think we think the goal, we're here to help as many people as we can, when in reality, I'm just here to do my part. I'm not here to help as many people as I can. I'm just here to do what my part is in the body. Now, that's going to be helping people, but I can't get the focus on me doing, I guess, is I'm not really doing well putting
that would have your ego leading the way if you work that way.
Yeah. And then he starts giving some examples of how a sage really is to behave.
Mm-hmm.
That a beast big enough to swallow a wagon, if he leaves the mountain forest, he'll not escape the hunter. And then a fish big enough to swallow a boat gets stranded by the outgoing tide. We've all seen that, seen video of that happening. That even ants can destroy the fish that gets stranded. And the birds fly high, and the beasts remain in trackless solitudes. They keep out of sight. Fish or turtles go deep down instead of the shallow water. The man who has some respect for his person keeps his carcass out of sight, hides himself as perfectly as he can. So he's comparing his actions to those of nature. He used nature as his example.
I'd say he's a perfect explanation for an introvert, and I really like him. This gives me permission to be an introvert.
But it's even more than that, Marla. He understands his place.
Right. That is, you can't, like, he's saying, I can't be out there and tell everybody how great I am. I need to be here and just be who I am. Wisdom or not. This is just what I am. I don't need to go out there. I'm going to get killed if I go out there.
Yeah, exactly. It says, I'm sorry.
I just was going to say, could this also be a perception thing? Because is it necessarily that he's hiding or that he's just being humble?
Humble.
Because hiding and humble are very different to me. Hiding to me means I'm scared.
Fear.
I'm afraid. I don't want to be out there because I don't want bad things to happen. But being humble is knowing my place.
I don't see fear here.
No, not in this.
No. I don't really see fear either. I'm just saying, I don't really know what I'm saying then.
Well,
I know what
it does say he kept himself hidden.
Good. But his action could appear to be someone who was fearful when, that's not the case. He's explaining why he's doing that. Because he respects himself. He says, the man who has some respect for his person keeps his carcass out of sight. And I was thinking I picked out a couple of verses of the Tao that kind of went along with this. This is the 39th verse in Stephen Mitchell's translation. In harmony with the Tao, the sky is clear and spacious. The earth is solid and full. All creatures flourish together, content with the way they are. endlessly repeating themselves, endlessly renewed. When man interferes with the Tao, the sky becomes filthy, the earth becomes depleted, the equilibrium crumbles, creatures become extinct. The master views, now this is the part that I really want to get to, the master views the parts with compassion because he understands the whole. His constant practice is humility. He doesn't glitter like a jewel, but lets himself be shaped by the Tao as rugged and common as stone.
That's so beautiful.
Even with my accent, Mark.
Took me a year to understand you too.
Oh, you're doing well if it was only a year. The master views the parts with compassion because he understands the whole. His constant practice is humility. He doesn't glitter like a jewel, but lets himself be shaped by the Tao. That's what Chu is doing here. He's letting himself be shaped by the Tao, as rugged and common as stone. Just common stone, not a glittering jewel.
You know, that common stone, that's what makes everything hum. It's the layers of people that make everything. I'm just thinking of this as a whole, as people, the people that work in the service industry. I mean, thank God somebody picks up my garbage, I respect them as much as I respect the doctors and I think I do. I'm just talking out of my ass sometimes, but I want to think like, the garbage man is as respectable as the doctor in terms of, and they could be two great people.
I mean, we all have our place in the body. We think of this whole thing as a body. We all have our place. I know there's times if my hand could ask, it wouldn't say, why in the world are we going here? It wouldn't know, or why it would do this or that, or why my feet are going, all those things. If you thought about the individual parts being able to ask questions, there would be a lot of confusion there. But we all have our place, and if we're stuck on praise, it's very deceptive. And praise can lead us.
Buddy, can you imagine that if everybody realized that we need everybody to do everything, that how differently people would be treated?
Marla, even me, if I just realized it more. Me too. I put myself in that too.
I don't claim to be perfect at that one. We're all, there's biases and all kinds of things in there.
Now Chu says, as far as Yao and Shun, why praise such kings? Now these guys were, he doesn't deny that they were sages, but here he calls them kings. What good did their morality do? What good did they really do? They knocked a hole in the wall and let it fill up with brambles.
So I read something about the time of Yao and Shun. It was a time of floods, great floods. So maybe that hole in the wall brambles makes sense in that respect.
Yeah, well, they made things less secure. They did not help.
Correct. Yeah.
They may have thought they were helping, but they were not helping. They were hurting. Listen to this. They numbered the hairs of your head before combing them.
Wait, maybe they shaved people's heads at that time. And they had that just one little ponytail back there. So it was easier to do it.
It would have been difficult.
No matter what. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the thing they're saying, it got ridiculous. Their morality didn't help anything. They counted out the grains of rice before cooking their dinner. So they had the right count of grains, that kind of thing. He's saying this is ridiculous. What good did they do to the world with their scrupulous distinctions? Now, this is the one that really got me. If the virtuous are honored, the world will be filled with envy. If the smart man's rewarded, the world will be filled with thieves. You cannot make good or honest, or you cannot make men good or honest by praising virtue and knowledge. Like, I thought praise was part of that. You can't make people virtuous by praising them.
Nope. It's what's in their heart.
So what I got from that, you cannot make men good or honest by praising virtue and knowledge, was how many people told me, because I'm taking it back to recovery, how many people told me, if you just don't pick up that drink, if you just don't drink, Amy, it'll be okay. You'll be fine. You're so smart. You're so pretty. You've got so much going for you. Just don't drink. Just don't drink and it'll be okay. You know, trying to tell me what was good for me, trying to tell me what to do, trying to tell me the truth when I had to figure out my own truth.
What this reminds me of, too, is that idea that I know I changed from the inside out. Any success I have starts from within and works outward. This looks to me like the opposite of that. Like it's an outward religious kind of thinking, where it says everybody has been since the days of pious. Now he calls them pious, Yao, and virtuous, Sean. Everybody's been trying to get rich. A son will kill his father for money. A minister will murder his sovereign to satisfy his ambition. In broad daylight, they rob each other. At midnight, they break down walls. The root of all this was planted in the time of Yao and Shun. So he's saying that if I follow the same path, I'm going to continue to plant this discontent. And I'm not going to do that. It reminds me of the religious systems that have no, what is it? They have a form of godliness, but deny the power thereof. It's this, there's a really good verse of the Tao that goes with this, about rolling up your sleeves and doing the work. What is that one? You know the one I'm talking about, Marla?
Sadly, I don't.
69.
37.
Oh.
They're all the
That's
same.
what I said. That's what I said. 37.
The
Okay.
verses are all the same anyways.
MacDonald, the highest good is not to seek to do good, but to allow yourself to become it. The ordinary person seeks to do good things and finds they cannot do them continually. These are ordinary people. The master does not force virtue on others. Thus, she is able to accomplish her task. The ordinary person who uses force will find that they accomplish nothing. The kind person acts from the heart and accomplishes a multitude of things. The righteous person acts out of pity, yet leaves many things undone. The moral person will act out of duty, and when no one will respond, will roll up his sleeves and use force. When the Tao is forgotten, there's righteousness. When righteousness is forgotten, there's morality. When morality is forgotten, there's law. The law is the husk of faith, and trust is the beginning of chaos. That's the decline down. The decline, when the Tao is forgotten, there's righteousness. Then after righteousness, you go to morality. You've got you've got an external shade. Every time you're getting more and more within your own abilities, within your own power, until you have chaos. Just like, if you want to go to recovery, Amy, first 3 steps in reverse. Or in the third step, You're seeking to turn your will and your life over to the care of God. You've made a decision. You're working the rest of the steps to make that happen. Now, you start losing that, and you are not turning part of your will over to not part of your care. You say, I'm going to carry this instead. Well, you're going to start seeing insanity in your thinking. You're going to lose your peace. And then if that stays long enough, you're going to go to one, which is unmanageability. You're going to start seeing it outwardly. You're going to start seeing anger, resentment. Those things don't start immediately. Those start with a lack of peace, which comes from stepping back another step to 3 of not turning your will and your life over to the care of God. Our basic understandings are not from the Tao because they come from the depths of our misunderstandings. The master abides in the fruit and not in the husk. She dwells in the Tao and not with the things that hide it. This is how she increases in wisdom. You do your, that's a good one there, Marla. I like that one.
You might need to reread that.
Did you not understand me on that one?
Not really. Yeah. Can you reread it?
Yeah. Let's see. The highest good is not to seek to do good, but to allow yourself to become it. The ordinary person seeks to do good things and finds they cannot do them continually. The master does not force virtue on others. Thus, she is able to accomplish her task. The ordinary person who uses force will find that they accomplish nothing. The kind person acts from the heart and accomplishes a multitude of things. The righteous person acts out of pity. Now, here's that progression downward in actions now. You've got the Tao, then you've got kindness, which is a lesser shade. Then you've got righteousness. The righteous person acts out of pity, yet leaves many things undone. Then you've got the moral person who acts out of duty. And when no one will respond, will roll up his sleeves and use force. When the Tao is forgotten, there's righteousness. When righteousness is forgotten, there's morality. When morality is forgotten, there's the law.
The law.
And the law is the husk of faith, and trust is the beginning of chaos. Our basic understandings are not from the Tao because they come from the depths of our misunderstanding. The depths of our misunderstanding. That's where these students of the masters were at, right? They were in the depths of their misunderstanding. The master abides in the fruit and not in the husk. Do what, Marla?
I was just thinking about that, the depth.
The God of our misunderstanding.
How deeply this person has misunderstood everything about myself and others. If I don't know myself, I certainly can't know others.
Nope. She dwells in the Tao and not with the things that hide it. This is how she increases in wisdom.
Yeah.
But that's the answer there. We didn't get the answer in our story. Our story left us depressed, because it just says, hey, the branches will grow for 1,000 ages, and 1,000 ages from now, men will be eating one another raw. In other words, it's going to continue to spiral down. It's the same spiral that's in verse 37 in the Tao Te Ching.
The same spiral. There's just a bit of foresight at the end of this, that with all of this mistrust and distrust and immorality, amorality coming, passed down through the generations, men are going to kill each other still. And we still see that happening.
But, the way we start to change it is really the way this verse 37 is talking about. It has to start with us.
I am doing my best. I just want others to do it. When I hear that, there's public people are getting death threats and there's, citizens camping out on their lawns and threatening them for no particular reason. That to me is men eating each other raw.
Mhm.
It's just barbaric behavior.
Yeah, that's why I don't watch the news.
It doesn't, they don't, yeah. That's,
And you know, the way I think we influence that is by changing our behavior.
So when you were talking about changing from the inside, it reminded me of my favorite story in the big book, Acceptance Was the Answer. And it says in here, if I could just control the external environment, the internal environment would then become comfortable. And then the shift happened, that paradigm shift, you know, that I've experienced, a spiritual awakening, whatever you want to call it, right? Life keeps getting simpler and easier as we try to reverse I love it, says we try to reverse my old idea by taking care of the internal environment via the 12 steps, via the Tao, whatever, and letting the external environment take care of itself.
Here's a Tao quote. Go ahead, Mark.
when you're looking for that, I had to have like several people point out things to me, you know, like my limiting beliefs, you know, like one thing that I couldn't grasp, and don't get me wrong, I love AA, you know, I think it's great, but I couldn't grasp the depth from it, and that I needed to know more about myself and why I behaved the way I did. And I needed people to point out my limiting beliefs to me because I have so many veils up, you know, that I didn't know what's real and what isn't. And I'm hoping with all of this, you know, studying the Tao, that the veils are being lifted or the layers are getting peeled, but however you want to say it.
Well, it's just like, Marla, if I have an infection in my leg, I don't take aspirin and rub it on the infection, right? In other words, one medication is not good for everyone, nor would one way of sobriety work for everyone, because we're all different.
I think go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think what's really cool though is at this point, like I'm studying the Tao here, right? I'm reading a very psychological writings book. I'm reading that with one sponsee, and then I'm reading another spiritual book with another one, and then a very Bible-based book with my sponsor. And what's really cool to me is how everything is interwoven. And how at this point, a few years ago, don't be talking to me about Bible. Won't hear it. I don't want to, no. But because of my perseverance and my willingness to continue to uncover, right, Marla? Uncover, discover, discard, which is very AA terminology for me. Now I'm getting to see how it's connected, and I get to connect the dots for me. It's not you connecting the dots for me. It's me connecting the dots for me, and how much enrichment I'm getting now. All that stuff I learned as a little girl in that Baptist church on Sunday mornings, some of that's really starting to make sense. Not that I'm feeling a pull or a force or someone telling me I have to do this or I have to do that. It's, wow, I get to really experience that I learned as a little girl. I get to experience that now because my eyes are open, my ears are open, my heart's open, whatever you want to call it. And that's pretty freaking fascinating for me, because it is, like I learned, it took me in being in the rooms of AA, right? That's what I heard. I heard those two guys 80 plus years ago sitting down talking about their problems with alcoholism. Like, holy shit, somebody else feels the way I do, thinks the way I do. And then, so that's where my beginning, I guess, started. And now over the past year, 2 years, it's really been that step 11, right? Sought through prayer and meditation to improve my spirituality, really is what I get from step 11. And that, all the synchronicities of one leading to another, but then it's also circular because it's coming back to that stuff I learned when I was 3. It's kind of really cool to see the physical, mental, and spiritual and emotional all come together. Yeah.
Reality.
Yeah.
I think the most important part of that, none of that was mistakes. What you were learning at 3 was preparing you for now, and I think the most important part that I would feel out of that was that you were open-minded enough to be to pay attention to that. You are open-minded enough to receive from that, because I know a lot of people who come into AA that they're not going to have anything to do with anything to do. They're so resentful at whatever religion they grew up in that I think sometimes that we cut off our nose, spite our face. Because I think that's what happens when we're not open-minded. And I think that's the whole point, is for us to have this. Marla and I were talking about it before the meeting, this don't know mind. As it's not that we don't know, it's that we approach everything with an openness, that we don't have this figured out. That what is it here that I don't know? Who here can I help? I mean, that whole attitude of openness, that I think is the most important part of this whole deal for me.
It does, because it asks us to, if the first onset of the Tao, it asks us to unlearn everything that we know,
Yes.
and become an empty chalice.
Yeah.
And to be open to be in the here and the now.
Yeah.
But
So our emptiness makes us useful. Yeah. Thank you, Marla.
we're not supposed to have, I don't want to say supposed to, but with no desires or attachments or stuff that holds us down, no ego.
Yeah, that verse 37 puts a cap on this. I mean, she dwells in the Tao and not with the things that hide it. How many times have I dwelled with the things that hid life from me, not gave life?
Sitting
I can do it now.
drinking.
Having my own way.
is a
And Marla, having my own way about things hides the Tao, hides the path of life from me. All the ways that I try to control, and my fear hides. We could talk forever just on that one phrase, that not with the things that hide it.
I think my being an introvert has very much to do with fear. Just fear of being out there. No question.
Yeah. That's good. The master abides in the fruit, not in the husk. So it would be the same as the corn, an ear of corn. The master's in the corn itself, the part you eat, not in the outward part, not in the shell. Isn't that what Chu was talking about? He wasn't interested in the shell. He was interested in what was within. They were interested in the husk. They were interested in how he looked, the things he got, his disciples were.
Mm-hmm.
That's all husk. That's all husk.
It's all facade.
Yes.
As long as I look good on the, Chris.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just thinking of peeling open a corn, realizing that it really wasn't very good inside when it looked beautiful on the outside.
Could be.
Okay. Yeah.
So much of.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, before it was like, if I look good on the outside, I can fake it, and I'm going to think that I feel good on the inside, right? And everybody else is going to think I'm okay on the inside. But that's so not true. Now, as long as I I keep the balance or keep the insides matching the outsides. That's what it's about for me today.
Mm-hmm. I was telling a sponsee, we were talking about that his family had not really seen him change that much. I said, well, they're going to be the last to see it because the change starts from the inside and works out. I said, you're going to know what progress you're making way before other people see it in daily life.
Mhm.
Because it doesn't start from the outside and work its way in. It starts from the inside and works its way out. They don't know how hard you're working. They will eventually see the changes in your life. Don't worry about them. Don't worry about that. Just keep doing the things that's working for you.
Behavior is the hardest part to change. Hmm.
And that part just comes, Chris. I think that if we focus on the do's, we don't have time to do the don'ts. Those things change for us.
All
Those
right.
things change. We don't have to worry about that. I don't think if we're doing the right things, we're just naturally going to start changing. Being worried about the action is the same thing that we're seeing here. They're worried about the outward appearance, not what's within. So we start from the opposite direction. That's why sons were killing fathers and all these things are happening, because they're just outwardly trying to get the things that are not going to satisfy them.
I also saw the 7 deadly sins in here. Maybe not all 7, but well, to satisfy his ambition, right? Greed. Mm-hmm. Everybody's trying to get rich.
Mm-hmm.
Bad behavior.
Pride, because, look at me.
All ego driven, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which takes me back to step 6 and 7 and character defects and shortcomings and humility and willingness. So there. Just stay willing to be humble.
I've got one more.
Everything's the same. You're hearing messages, all the same messages from different areas.
Seeing the same stature just from a different view, Marla. That's what this is for me. Okay, here's a Lao Tzu quote. I can't peg it to a verse. To bear and not to own, to act and not lay claim, to do the work and let it go. Just letting it go is what makes it stay. So that's how we do this. We have to surrender. The act of letting it go is what makes it stay.
And this at the end of each of these podcasts, that's what we always come up with. You just have to surrender.
Let go or get dragged. That's your choice.
Yeah.
We used to have a lady in the meeting, Butterfly Pam was what we called her. Everybody in meetings, you don't know have last names, so you have some. She had butterflies on everything, so we called her Butterfly Pam. And we had one guy that was he was Angry Joey because he was angry all the time. But he stayed sober for a long time and he became Nurse Joey after that.
I thought you said Angry Joy. Like he was mad to be
No, Joey.
Joey.
I'll break down a little more.
Joey.
Yes. So he was, Angry Joy. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. But it's just in the letting go. It's in the surrender. It just really comes back to the same thing. So we have to turn our will and our life over. We have to let it go. That's the only place I found peace is in stopping the fight, accepting things as they are. Will be there waiting for me the whole time if I would just stop the fight. Just let go. I don't have to have my higher power figured out, and it keeps changing too. It won't stay still. It keeps moving.
I found that too. Once I gave up the idea of having it one thing, I began to see it in a lot of things. And that was a kind of a spiritual awakening too. It's, if you're open to it, you can really hear a lot of things that people are saying that are really wise.
I remember the day, Marla, that I realized that maybe my surrender to alcohol, that in the second step, the power greater than me, maybe alcohol itself, may not even be talking about God there. Like, oh shit, could it really mean that? And I looked around and said, well, who's talked about that before? And I didn't find it around. So that's got to be wrong. There's no way that could be right.
Is alcohol being a higher power?
Sure it is.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
power. Yeah. But in the second step, I always thought about that as, it was told to me that that's talking about God, in some form, And I'm like, it's just my letting it go that made the difference with the alcohol too. Every time it's in me stopping the fight that I find the weaker I get, the stronger I become. I'm like, okay, so that has nothing to do with God, so to speak, imparting some strength to me. It's just the fact that I stopped fighting, strength is there. I'm like, whoa, could it be that simple? Could it be that easy? So far, it just gets simpler, not more difficult. How does that sound, Chris? I know we've talked a lot about higher power in the past some. How does that resonate with you, that the issue is not in the belief, the issue is in the surrender, is in the stopping the fight?
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a phrase in there in the big book about getting out of the debating society, something along those lines. And
right.
Yeah, for me, that was what it was all about, was the debate rather than what was really going on. So exactly, that's right on.
I'm not saying there's no God. I'm not saying anything about God at all.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it seems to me the strength in recovery for me is in stopping fighting whatever's going on with anything, no matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that, along with the fact, for me, it was realizing what the phrase "as you understand it" really means. I thought I was struggling with trying to understand your God, your higher power, rather than having my own higher power. And that just contortions like crazy. It just doesn't work. And it's a search too. You have to be, you have to surrender and be open rather than be searching.
Yes.
Is what I sort of came to as well.
It's that don't know mind, Chris.
Yeah, if you're searching for something, that means you more or less think you have an idea what it looks like. You're looking for your phone, you know what your phone looks like. If you didn't know what your phone looked like, obviously it'd be a crazy search, right?
Yeah.
So my therapist and I were talking about these kind of things yesterday too, which is sort of interesting. Talking about the icons of Christianity and how some people are just comfortable with that. But, to me, that's what makes it impossible. So I just had to say, well, okay, it's yours. It's not mine, but it's yours. So.
Yeah, and give them your permission to have whatever belief they want to have. We don't have to fix or correct anyone. That's where the freedom comes. That's the openness, really.
particularly when we're talking about sobriety. You can get a little more philosophical in the Tao area, but if you're talking about sobriety and tools and what makes things work, it's really, really appropriate, I believe.
And this, what we've talked about today is just nature's our example with this. Water's a prime example of how to behave with all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any closing comments, guys?
Yep, of course. So synchronicity everywhere. On Sunday at our 9:00 meeting on Sunday, we started reading step 2 out of the 12 and 12, exactly where it says, just resign from the debating society and quit bothering yourself with such deep questions as whether it was the hen or the egg that came first. So we will be finishing reading step 2 this coming Sunday because I just love it. So here we are talking about step 2. So buddy, I hope you can be there Sunday and share your whole concept. If not, it's okay. But this seriously, and I heard Mike W. say this the other day, in order to believe in the God that created man, I had to stop believing in the God that man had created.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to say that one more time because it's that intense. In order to believe in the God that created man, I had to stop believing in the God that man had created.
So Mike W.,
it wasn't original, but he definitely said it. And then I asked him and he texted me it so I could have it. So yeah, Mike W. Yep.
I wonder where he got that.
I'm sure he'll tell you.
Oh, I'm sure he would if I asked.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
You. That's good. That's good. Mm-hmm. Anything else, guys, before we close? Good conversation today. Never know where these are going. We'll go from there, guys. Have a great week, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, buddy.
Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.